Beloved, in rejecting God, people make absurd statements like, I believe in science, or we must have faith in science, seemingly oblivious to the fact that the scientific enterprise turns on a method which was articulated only a few centuries ago by Francis Bacon, which is essentially to observe, hypothesize, predict, test, and modify, and is derived from Aristotle's treatise on logic and syllogism. The ancients, including King David and Thales, marveled at the material world and sought to understand it by observing it. David's observation of the material universe led him to acknowledge God, as is also the case with the vast majority of scientists. David wrote, and he said, when I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have set in place, awed by the wonder of God's creation. Science is nothing but a method for testing knowledge claims, and the fundamental principle which underpins the method is the verification principle. The verification principle states in essence that only statements that are empirically verifiable are meaningful. Consequently, it holds that all other statements are meaningless. The problem here is that the verification principle itself fails its own test. How does one verify the verification principle by its own definition? One cannot. Hence my contention that it is absurd to aver that you believe in science. Furthermore, there are a good number of things that cannot be scientifically proven, but are all rational to accept. For example, 1, logical and mathematical truths cannot be proven by science. Science presupposes logic and mathematics. Therefore, to try and prove them by science would be arguing in a circle. 2, metaphysical truths like there are other minds other than my own, or the external world is real, are rational beliefs that cannot be scientifically proven. 3, ethical beliefs about statements of value are not accessible by the scientific method. You can't show by science whether Nazi scientists did anything evil as opposed to the scientists in Western democracies. 4, aesthetic judgments cannot be accessed by the scientific method because beauty cannot be scientifically proven. 5, science itself. I reiterate, science cannot be justified by the scientific method. Science is permeated with unprovable assumptions. For example, if one considers the Euclidean axiom, which says the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And we know that this axiom does not hold true in Einsteinian physics, yet it is perfectly rational. It is also for these reasons I consider it irrational to claim a belief in science, since knowledge systems and testing knowledge claims are not the exclusive purview of the scientific method. Atheistic scientists, which by the way is a fringe group of individuals filled with pride and rebellion against God, like Richard Dawkins, who utter their nonsense under the guise of being scientific. Nonsense, whether spoken by scientists, remains nonsense. For example, when at the beginning of Cosmos, Carl Sagan said, the cosmos is all that is, or ever was, or ever will be, he was simply expressing his atheistic belief. It was not a scientific statement like gravity obeys an inverse square law. However, because it came from Sagan, many took it to be a scientific fact, and it came to the absurd conclusion that it has merit in science. There exists a long list of such obfuscation and nonsense in the literature, which I won't go into at this stage. Suffice to say, Paul argues, and he writes in Romans chapter 1, they exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshipped and served the creature rather than the creator. In 1 Corinthians 1, he goes on to say, the message of the cross is foolish to those who are headed for destruction, but we who are being saved know it is the very power of God. As the scriptures say, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise and discard the intelligence of the intelligent. So where does this leave the philosophers, the scholars, and the world's brilliant debaters? God has made the wisdom of this world look foolish, since in his wisdom saw it to it that the world would never know him through human wisdom. He has used our foolish preaching to save those who believe. Finally, the rational thing to do is to believe in and have faith in God, who is the creator of all things seen and unseen. Have belief and faith in Yeshua, who reconciled us to God through his finished work on the cross. And it is the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of truth, which leads us into all righteousness. I encourage you to stay blessed and consider these points that I raise, because I think it's important. There's a lot of confusion in this world. People juxtapose the idea of belief in God against or versus the idea of a belief and a faith in science, which is a created thing. It's a method. It's a means to an end. So I encourage you to stay blessed, and Shabbat Shalom.